Hey everybody, welcome again. I just want to preface the interview that you're about to watch, or listen to, rather. Tried to record it with video, and the video didn't record correctly, so we got the audio, salvaged that. Rather than doing the whole interview over again, I just set it to a nice background and added some little Easter eggs in there, so maybe you get some enjoyment out of it, hopefully make you laugh a little bit. It is a very long form interview. It's about an hour and 20 minutes plus whatever this happens to be. So I'm a fan of long form, a really big fan of it. I enjoy listening to very long conversations that go pretty deep. This one goes pretty deep. We talk about a lot of things, whether it's job stuff or the military retirement process. We skim over Space A little bit, talk a lot about benefits and different things, and getting out, and how you feel after the fact. Garry just got out within 8 days of the interview, so he's freshly retired. But he's a good friend. I've known him for many, many years, and happy to have him on, and happy to have him be able to open up and talk to me. It's not always easy for people to open up and talk, so I really appreciate the fact that he took the time and sat down with me and spent all that time, and we went through and did the interview. So long form, I hope you enjoy, and feel free to leave comments down below. Hopefully the comments are open. I know on the last few videos I noticed that they were closed off, so I went ahead and opened them back up. I don't know how they got closed. I think it was because there was a child made for children setting that I toggled, and that by default closes off the comments. So I went ahead and opened them back up for all the videos. Hopefully you can parse through it, and then if you also look below, there'll be some notes below the videos, and you'll be able to get some of the links or whatever that we talk about and discuss in the video. You'll get them there, so just let me know, and any feedback I would love to have from you. Thank you very much, and without further ado, enjoy.
Let's start from the beginning. So you're Garry Frobart. I know that. Not everybody knows that. You retired just last month, September, right?
8 days ago.
Yeah, September this year. So 8 days in. You were on active duty for how long?
24 total, but 20 active.
Okay. So you did like me, and I guess we both kind of fall in the same kind of special category. We were AGRs when we retired from active duty. So it means we did some reserve time, and then we did some deployments and some other stuff, and it all kind of added up. And I think I got about the same, like 25 and then 20 active. Cool. Born and raised in Long Island, or were you born and raised in Berlin, or were you mentally born and raised in Berlin?
No, my parents are German immigrants. So I was born in Long Island. Went back to elementary school with my mother. She had cancer, so we went back to West Berlin at the time. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in West Berlin from 84 to 88. And went back to America in like the 6th grade, and where I was at the rest of the time until I joined the Army when I was 21.
And that was like right before the wall came down when you left?
Yeah, it was 1 year before the wall came down. Actually lived 200 meters from the Berlin Wall, so it was like my playground when I'd go out.
Wow.
So I got upset because I had to go back to the States, and the wall came down. I missed the celebration. I missed the unity. I wanted to go back because my mother was like, "You're going to marry a nice German girl one day," and whatnot. That's what she used to say. Yeah. The Army just said, score well enough on the ASVAB test, and we can guarantee your choice of station. So I studied for the tests, and off to Germany I was. And stayed there for 14 years.
Yeah. That's kind of funny. You went into logistics. Having two languages already before you joined, right? Because you were already fluent in German and English both, right?
Yeah, well, they tried to get me to become either a tank driver or an infantryman. And they were like, I guess those are my high line scores. If you look at the highest line scores, okay, I can coordinate really well. So I guess that's good for tanks, the aim and stuff like that, I guess. And I guess logistics is my third, but I had to sit there for an hour and a half and say, nope, I'm not going to Germany to be a tank driver.
Yeah.
My recruiter told me to hold out because they know there's a goodie bag.
Yeah.
back there. So I held out for an hour. And I didn't want logistics either. It's like I could be a stock boy here in the States. You know, I wanted something that had benefits after I got in the Army, of course, you know.
So do you think now, looking back, that was
Well,
a good decision? Like it kind of worked out. I mean, you're probably one of the top logisticians that I know across the military. Seriously, you know more about logistics and
shit.
supply side and all that stuff.
Yeah, actually turned out very well. It was very natural because like project management, and, you know, I'm kind of all over the place. I like to talk to everyone, go over there, and just got me out of the office, you know, because a lot of it requires face-to-face communications with people. So, you know, being from New York, I like to move around and talk. So that kind of worked out for me. It's probably the best thing that happened to me. Sometimes the best things prayers are not answered.
Yeah.
So I guess that turned out to be, you know, I'll do good in anything I'll do. You know, I just gotta settle on the choice and go and focus on it. And that gave me something to focus on, you know. So I just did my best and it worked out very well.
Yeah.
Way more well than I thought it was going to be. I mean, the amount of training and things that I've gotten, you know, for me, that's like my greatest achievement right there. Because the amount of training that I was able to like pull and it just made me want to like, after being an instructor, I just wanted to learn more and more. Like I got this thirst for knowledge and be able to tell people, you know, things because I had access to it at the schoolhouse. I was like, oh, let me go and pull this information out because every class was siloed. So I would kind of pull information out of every class, see what I can get and, you know, share the wealth and become like a guidance counselor to some people on what's out there, what can be done, even though it didn't always work out the best for me. I mean, but at least I'm able to explain to someone. Like a lot of the people I tell how to do things that I've done surpassed me in rank already.
Right.
And I'm like, nice, because, you know, they're listening to me and they're doing well, but it's weird because, you know, they're getting more promotions than I am. So I'm like, kind of weird.
Yeah. You almost stifle yourself by pushing everybody else forward. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I become too like, you know, hard because I'm so determined on this goal and I become like, got this like eye for a purpose that I want to do. You know, it's kind of like maybe some people think I'm harsh or nothing. I should like, no, I'm just got like that, you know, the eye of the tiger. I want to learn this stuff. And so
Yeah.
a lot of people, even the schoolhouse, didn't get it. You know, it was about training and learning. Learn, train, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, why are you, Frobart, going to learn so much? And then hindsight, you know, they changed the whole criteria. And then all of a sudden I became the poster boy. What Frobart was doing right the whole time, but I was getting a lot of flack for it at the time.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I realized later on as well was becoming the mentor and teaching people how to do things and guiding them along the path. And I think I've pushed probably a handful of warrants through from the initial packet set up to get their, you know, their letters of recommendation, blah, 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 to go through and actually pin on like W1, which is really satisfying. It's really, really sad, especially after the fact, like after I retired and a couple of them like called me up and showed me the video from their graduation ceremony. It was really awesome. It's really fulfilling to see that work then come to fruition later on down the line. That's and I'm the same way. I'm all about learning and gathering information. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually a really good thing. It's one of the reasons why I'm trying to put this stuff together as well, to do the same kind of thing, like help people out and get them some information that they might not already have. You could definitely be my partner in crime in this stuff. Turn it into a regular podcast. I know you've been out 8 days. The last like 90 to 180 days, what did that look like mentally, emotionally? Like what kind of stuff was going on in your mind through that process? And has any of it subsided since you've actually like got out and got your stamp and got your retirement paperwork?
It was horrible. You know, I had so much anxiety. You know, I had 4 months of vacation that I pretty much just had to take at home to learn and study and like prepare. And, you know, because I took that corporate skills shit in the Skillbridge program. So, you know, I was kind of thrown in front of a lot of corporations out there and I didn't, you know, there's so many opportunities that's out there for you. So let me go and see what it's all about. You know, a lot of times the best link was the link that never even clicked. And all of a sudden that link turned into like, a really great tool.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if that's what happens with this link, what about all these other links? And then it became a catch-up game. So I was shy of my bachelor's for a few classes. And they said that was a requirement. And then I was trying to knock out the certifications while the Army could still pay for it. And I was like, I had all these things on my agenda, but the resume part was, it was hard to get around the concept of how it's written first for a civilian company.
Yeah.
And then you write it towards your military experience. But really, you don't even need to do that because you have to write it what's on the resume requirement, the job description requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it was just getting used to how to link what, as a civilian corporation, they want to what you've done in the military. Just took really a while to get my head wrapped around it. So yeah, it was anxiety because I'm in Brooklyn, in New York. It's very expensive, and I either had to move. I was planning to move back to Germany, or I was going to stay here because I'm been here for 5 years. If I can't make the transition into the civilian work life in New York, where I'm living here. I mean, this is my best chance now. So I'm from New York, so I want to use this opportunity and get something outside the military on my resume. And so this program was very eye-opening. Got contacts, a lot of contacts with many different companies, recruiters, a lot of people from Indeed teaching you how to resume prep, branding, finances. So even though that was the corporate fellowship program that I was in, working for the company, but on Fridays, the Chamber of Commerce would bring on guest speakers and they would teach us throughout the ways, and it was great. And then, since I was going within a cohort, we had about 40 people. So everyone was going, all officers, non-commissioned officers as well. Everyone was going through the same problems, dealing with the company because no one knows how to express themselves. But then you had 40 people embedded in 40 companies. So then you started to get the experience of what this company does and how it is and how this one's not so well and this one's, what their tricks and tips were. So it was a good collection of resources that we wound up getting. Mm-hmm. And now we have, networks, and now we have connections to all those companies. So right now the hiring part for me is really expanded. So I have a huge connection on Facebook now and, across the civilian sector and the military sector. So even though I haven't achieved exactly everything, but I've ran it down and, I can almost probably be part of that program because I've done so much of that program to help get people on that track, because it was an opportunity that I almost missed because it was a TAC course and it was just briefly discussed, but it wound up being, the program is growing so much and it's getting so involved that it's definitely, you must participate in this when you get out.
Yeah.
You don't do that stuff, just the network you get and the connections you get is just worth it, the way to go.
Yeah, that's, I 100% wholeheartedly agree with that. That's one of the things we talked about before we started getting into the interview was building the networks of communities around you and reaching out and talking to people on a daily basis. So that was the corporate fellowship program. You got that through Skillbridge? How did that actually work?
Yeah, it's a program in the Skillbridge programs. Skillbridge, you can work for a normal company that's in the list for 6 months, mm-hmm. but to work at corporations, it's only a 3-month block.
Okay.
And you have to be accepted and connected with the company, and not everyone goes that route.
Do you think, how do you think it would have looked versus the 6 months working with a company route? You feel like you got more out of the 3-month program than you would have out of the 6-month program?
Oh, Skillbridge program is just join this company and they ever labor for 6 months and then, hopefully you get hired. But there was no training involved in that. There's no program manager at the Chamber of Commerce looking over, teaching you. Their goal is to make sure everyone in this program gets a job. Mm-hmm. They try to put all the training, and they have sky's the limit. They're pulling in all types of companies. Google's in there, Amazon, and definitely my knowledge increased 1,000% easily just by being aware, getting all the meetings from Meta, and just the programs available. Things that would take me years I wouldn't even know to discover. And now I see it at my fingertips, which is great. Now I'm excited because there's too many things going on out there. It's like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this,
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was definitely building my confidence, but I haven't quite got a job yet. So I'm a little, nervous, I guess. I'm always nervous about everything, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Trying to do school at the same time was just hard. That's why I regret not finishing my bachelor's sooner. So I didn't have to do this at the very end. So now I'm trying to cram it all in. When I have too many things, then you tend to procrastinate and get a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, I would say the job thing, it's a hit or miss thing. Like, I've applied for a ton of jobs myself and haven't actually got one yet. And I've been interviewed multiple times and done multiple interviews with single companies. And I think a lot of the times, maybe it's the vibe that I put off, but really, like, after I got out and I decided, like, I really want to be 100% remote, if that's even possible. And a lot of people advertise it, and a lot of people don't actually follow through on it, or at least they don't go beyond the borders of the United States in a lot of cases. So I really kind of put that forward whenever I'm interviewing, and maybe it comes out that way. And that's just the way I've been. Like, I did that when I converted from my E4 to an NCO, and I did my board, and they're like, what are your plans in the next 5 years? And I was like, in the next 12 months, I'm going to get out of the Army. And they're like, you can't do that. You can't say that. I'm like, you want me to lie? So I think I kind of put it out there a lot, maybe. And maybe that's the way it kind of returns to me, is to just say, yeah, we can't really give you everything you want. So, but I wouldn't be too discouraged about it. I mean, jobs are jobs. But it sounds like you got a lot out of the fellowship program. I wish I would have been able to take part in that. I just didn't find the right Skillbridge thing, and I didn't even know about the fellowship program, so that's a no for me.
And it's been around for years already, but it's still in development. The companies don't even know how to utilize soldiers yet right away. So it's still a learning curve for all, but it's definitely, it's on the right path.
Yeah, and you're at the ground floor of it. So.
Well, guess what? Here's a pool of employees looking for employment. I'm not sure if it'll work out for you, but at least you are connected to a military hiring source, so.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah, if I can't make it, at least someone else can, and they can figure it out and let me know or something, but. We have a life in Germany anyway, so, this is all like bonus material here anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So, as you were going through and I don't even know when you started the process, I mentally and physically started my process about 2 years out. I think that's what I did when I came off of active duty the first time too. I started doing the ACAP is what it was called back then, about 2 years before I got out. And I remember people were pissed because they're like, you can't leave from work to go do that crap. And I'm like, it's right here in black and white in the regulation. It says I can. So, but I know a lot of people take advantage of that. But in that process, whenever you started it, like what was maybe one?
I started like 6 years out when I was at Fort Lee.
Oh yeah.
Because I knew active duty when we got deployed, what it all entailed about getting out. And I realized that, you can't do that thing right when you get ready to get out. That's a long process. So I just wanted to take the class to see what was out there, because I had an entrepreneurship it was a franchising thing. I was like, all right, let me see what Virginia has to offer, and I just learn the words and what they look for, and so it's always been on the back burner. So when I look at my military career, I was never really looking to make the next rank per se. I was looking to get the job afterwards and trying to do those duties to make it relevant. So when I have something to talk about when I get out, and the Army, your job, employment doesn't end at the military. It's got to keep going further. So you got to look further out and just pigeonhole military life.
Yeah,
because it's gonna be a hard transition when you get out.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the reason why, maybe it's kind of like asinine to say it, but it's a lot of the reason why some people transition directly out of the military straight into like a GS position in the same place where they worked, because they maybe were like, maybe that's their path that they want to stay on and they want to stay in that organization, just continue on as a civilian. But it's really a kind of an easier transition because you already know everybody there. You've got your foot in the door. If they like you can pretty much get hired on if they have a position available. And sometimes they just make positions, right, for people. I mean, we don't want to admit it that that's the truth, but that's really the truth of the matter, right? So yeah, doing the hard work and trying to make your own trail outside of that kind of bubble of the military GS DA civilian kind of world is yeah. I didn't know you started 6 years out. That's interesting.
Well, with that training, yeah, but I was looking, and then even in New York, when it was my window, I already told Fort Lee many times, like, this shouldn't be a 1 year out thing. This should be at least a 2 year out thing. And somehow their policies did change to 2 years, and then we had more access. So I started going here to New Jersey. I kind of procrastinated because HRC didn't give me my orders or weren't answering my retirement packet fast enough. So all of a sudden I was kind of delayed, and I almost didn't get the opportunity to do any of this program. Luckily that they extended my contract for 5 months to be able to which wound up letting me get on the program. But I would have about to been out of the Army overnight with nothing.
Yeah.
And, I had to get my TAP the week before I actually got out.
So in that whole process, like, what were one or two things? It could be one, but if you could think of one or two that were like the most painful points of the process when you were actually doing the transition or CIF turn in or whatever it might have been, like what were one or two things that you identify that were like, wow, this is really, really harder than it should be? The VA process.
It was all hard, the VA process. I had to put it all, create a list, and then kind of work on it throughout the time. And then, as you're driving, you remember something, because now it's like, what's annoying is you have to like think of what you've done throughout the whole military life and then try to capture it into, say, the disability thing or, for your resume, things that you've kind of blown over. Okay, solve that problem. Good. But it's not like one of those major, I saved $6 billion or something, but it's a very important part. And that's something that you can't express on your resume because all their resumes asking you for those, achievements, the big ticket items. So, I was just, I'm very nonchalant and modest, and I just can't talk about myself in those forms and fashions.
Yeah.
Which was hard to get over. I've learned to be more talkative, and it's not knowing was the hardest part, and just having to call everything and learn it, and then you forget it and relearn it and relearn it, and it was constantly having to relearn stuff. It was kind of annoying. Everything's been at the very leash, at the very last second. All the processes didn't have to need to be as hard as it should have.
Yeah. And maybe it's because you're on a reserve base as well too, and not having access to some of that active duty like stuff that you could potentially have. Or did you go to an active duty base to do some stuff?
Fort Texas is an active duty base.
Yeah, that's where you did your TAP and all that stuff.
Yeah, between that and West Point. I was going to my dentist at West Point, so I was talking to them. So I was like double tapping.
Yeah.
And,
no pun intended. Oh. Okay. So then what would be like the one of your most favorite parts of the process that was like so calming and relaxing and easy, and just, or maybe one person that you met along the way in the process that really helped you out and did something like extraordinary, and you may have thought it was a difficult thing and they just made it seem so easy?
Well, I mean, on the very end, I had a sergeant major that came in, and he was a high-speed stellar sergeant major, and, just got his rank. And so he was at a 2-star, and he was able to pick up and carry on the torch a lot which took over a lot of the stuff that I was doing. It was only me and him and possibly some civilians, but they were not there at the time because we had a gap. He covered down on a lot towards the end and gave me that time to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
I got the time, got the assistance, which worked out well because I didn't have that as much previously. So it was a lot of weight off my chest at that point. And that helped me out a lot just towards the end. And then, as we came from Germany, and we had a lot of people that were in the senior staff and they've all retired. So, we got a lot of help from you. We talk all the time. And provided different insight, different perspectives. Sometimes you found information that I didn't know, or vice versa. Or I listened to other people who got out in VA, so we had I think our Germany unit was definitely the most resourceful unit out there.
Yeah, I think in the last 5 years, probably a handful of the officers that we worked with in Germany were at HRC. The guy from the G1 was there. There's a few people that I met at HRC that were old German transplants from our old unit in Germany. So it's good.
Yeah, I noticed that because a lot of them from HRC go to Germany. So we were meeting all those people that were already coming from good places.
Yeah.
And then they're going back to good places. So that was a benefit of being in that command.
Yeah, it's definitely it was an interesting kind of weird thing to meet all those people and then see them all in different places all over the place after the fact, after the unit.
Yeah, like in major positions too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're doing what?
Yeah. Yeah, even going back and seeing the unit that's there now, it's not even close to what it used to be. There's something about the camaraderie and the family that we built because it was so small, close-knit, and everybody kind of knew everybody else, and everybody knew everybody's families and everything. So it was a dynamic that you can't really easily replicate nowadays, I don't think.
And I think a lot of it had to do with that cantina we used to have in the old building.
Yeah.
Because you'd work, and then after you get done working, everyone would go to the cantina, and then you hung out.
Yeah.
So it's like you worked, and then you hung out afterwards, right after work. So, which the new building didn't have. So once work is done, everyone's left the building. So I think that cantina brought a lot of people closer together than they normally would have.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I spent many evenings down there with the CG and other people just, drinking a beer, relaxing, taking it easy, telling stories. But those relationships turn into, later on down the line, like you need a favor or if you need to ask somebody for advice or whatever, you can actually reach out to those people and they're really accessible. So I think it really was a good, it was kind of like the glue that held everything together. I know you've only been out for 8 days and you probably have a lot more time to think about this, maybe months, years down the road, but like what is one thing that you're absolutely going to miss about not being on active duty anymore?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. I don't know. It was just easier to navigate because when I looked at my material at work, it was, I knew what I was doing. It was crystal clear, even though there was a lot of regulations and all this nonsense and hard to find. It's just like, I had 20/20 vision when I look at this stuff. Now transitioning, I'm looking at everything, I'm like, not quite understanding the stuff. So it was empowering when you see work and you know what to do and you have the organization behind you that empowered you to do something. It's like, I could do this. And I enjoyed putting together projects with the support of the company that I had.
Yeah.
Find joy in that. I like putting on the uniform because you know what you're going to wear. But for some reason, when you put those boots on, it's like my pace picked up like tenfold. I'd walk faster and move faster. And it's just like, I get that eye of the tiger, I guess. Like I knew the mission was on. It was like game on at that point. And it kind of woke me up, give me reason to get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like, I don't have nothing to do, so I don't have that reason to like jump up and get my day started. Now it's slowly, usually me get up, shower, go, and boom, out the door, let's get started. Now it's like, it's longer, it drags on, it's something I got to get used to. Something that I guess, it's not a bad problem to have, I guess, but got more shit done, more stuff done when I was in uniform, I would say, because you're up so early. Missed the gyms, actually, because now being in New York, it's always these small little gyms, and even though the MWR there's no valleys or anything, but it was definitely a nice place to go and wake up and work out and meet other people.
Yeah. And free.
Oh, and free. Yeah. Over here, it's like $150 for a membership.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're like this, it's like a hotel gym. Like you make me pay for what?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of stuff on this. You know, some units are better than others. Sometimes I'm like, oh, these people, personality issues, can't wait to leave. But then you think of the good times and I'm like, oh, I wish I could stay.
What else? Oh, yeah. So this is a great question, and it kind of dovetails on the end of the last question. When you got out, or even before you got out, and I know you're very similar to me when it comes to like taking notes, and putting everything in binders, and keeping it all organized, and putting a lot of information together, so that you don't have to recreate the wheel every single time you do something. Was there like a smart book or like a folder full of files and information that you passed on to your predecessors once you left?
Yeah, it was a knowledge management thing. You know, I've collected so much in the Army, a lot of training, a lot of materials that, you know, people could use. So I would create, you know, knowledge management is a big part of military decision-making process, whatnot. So, you know, I created folders. I created, when teams came out, I would always, you know, since I could record screens, I would go with people and record screens, how to do a particular process. And I would save it to my little database so people can reference it later. I don't want to be the single point of failure. And, you know, I want to train them on it, capture it while they were doing it so they could always look back on it. My general, they created a new annex for the base operations. So I had to create the whole logistics annex F, which allowed me to also capture those lessons learned of how to do processes that weren't like in the regular SOP and that were like sticky points throughout the time. So I was able to formally write a document that came out really well as well, which I never really sat down and had the time to do. But I had a lot of I got terabytes of interesting stuff that I shared. But and I'd always give people a read on this, you know, with all the SOPs, what I've learned, the lessons learned, so they could always reach back. Pretty much gathered all the stuff so that she knew where it was. Did she use it all? I mean, probably not right away, but that learning database there is definitely something I've been trying to do that for years, you know.
Yeah.
For years, because I wanted to learn stuff and I couldn't find it. So I would go and gather and collect it from my own self. And, you know, I shared it at the end, but I was already out, so I didn't really have time to do over the shoulder anything. But that product is probably better than any product out there that you'll find in the supply room.
Yeah.
It's a G4.
Yeah, I know it is. That's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I had the same kind of experience. I like to not hoard information, but like gather as much information as possible. And I was always asking myself, like, why is this so difficult? Why is there, like with the retirement process, right? Why is there not some kind of like bulleted like index card that I can carry around and know exactly what the hell I got to do? Right? Why do I have to go and like talk to people and read through mounds of documentation to find out like like people haven't been retiring for the last 100 years? Like, why is it so damn difficult? And that's why I ask, because I know you're very meticulous with data and with information, and you're a hoarder like me. You hoard all the information, but you also prepare it and organize it and give it to people in a way that they can then take it and utilize it and be that much better in their jobs once you've gone on to the next assignment or you retire or whatever. Like, I feel that that's something really important that some people don't necessarily do. I don't know if everybody does it. I guess I'm going to find out over the course of a few interviews or whatever. But
yeah, my job, I didn't have many people to transition it to. We had one new worker, she picked up a lot of it, and a lot of stuff we collect, people don't even know that they need or what the purpose of it is. It's like it doesn't come to their realization, like probably 2 years later, in my opinion, to realize like, oh, what you've been doing, you were right from the get-go.
yeah.
So, I always talk to the source, who's the project manager, who's developing the system. Being at CASCOM as an instructor, I knew the people who were writing the training lessons plan, and I get my source straight from the I just get the info straight from the source, and I realized that the source is where you can change info, because a lot of people are like, oh, regulations or scripture. I don't know, because up there they're thinking this is just a framework of how you go about doing something. So there's a miscommunication between how people are publishing the guidance and how people are receiving it.
Yeah.
So now I just go straight to the source, get my training, get my info, to make my suggestions. Some people are like, why is this guy over down there making these suggestions? Because, I've seen it. I know how it works now. So that was exciting part for me, though.
Yeah, for me as well. It kind of ties into another question about like what the legacy you would want to leave behind. But I mean, I think that kind of answers it. It's like teaching people how to teach themselves how to learn and how to, utilize information and utilize resources to the best of their ability.
Yeah, and like, if I look at some of the people that made it to warrants or made the supply excellence awards and all this, I have this New York, I have this hustle. I'm like, quick, let's go. I got to learn, I got to teach. I'm always on the move. And, just the way about how we work as an instructor or how we did, that trait is also a very good one. And how to go gather the resources, where to look, half it's learning how to navigate where things are and having the process down. I'd go and always find information in all the different courses, because I took so many courses that weren't even in my particular area. And I would start piecing it all together. And it's just like me going outside the realm of my duty description, which is what the Army really wants people to do. But everyone, is afraid to do it. That I was able to do it, and I knew it, and it turned to be I was right. But that's one thing that kind of hindered me, because I was so into getting this military training, because it was a one-time an opportunity to get the specific sort of training for doing these things. I'll never get to learn this stuff in school. Then that took a priority over me going to college. I was like, I could go to college after I get out. They'll give me something to do when I get out. But hindsight now I wish I would have focused more on the college at that point, because now I'm here trying to jam all this information in, because, for me, the degree will, it helps me. A lot of it's a requirement for my field to have a bachelor's degree. And even though I got 24 years of logistics, having that bachelor's degree is like one of the requirements. So, so it's really good, and I went after this, but, at the same time, I sacrificed a little bit on my own personal education, which I can catch up on, which I'm doing right now. But
yeah, you got time. You're young, man.
I got time. I don't know, because I'm always thing and the next thing. So it's like I got to finish this.
Yeah, you'll get it done. It's not that much more work. I mean, you're better than me. I can't twist my own arm to go back and finish college. It's just not that.
I did all my senior level courses. It was the general education courses that were at the end. And I'm like, I have to finish my bachelor's. It's like, you need me to take a history course?
History 101.
I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Of course, I was prioritizing these elite military training courses versus my statistics course.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting, but
yeah, doing it remote or doing it in the military, it's just, you get to that point where you've done all the 200, 300, 400, 500 level classes, and then you have to go back and finish philosophy 105 or something. I'd rather go take some training for a couple of weeks and not do the courses. Yeah, you got time. You got plenty of time.
Yeah, but when you say plenty of time, but a lot of the reason for the procrastination though is not many people always sit there and this is the degree you need to succeed when you get out. It's at least in my field, it was sometimes there was a guidance counselor missing in that area, saying this degree works with this, what you're doing to get you this future job. That's actually kind of lacking throughout my career, which is probably why it took me so long to do my school, because there was so many different avenues. I didn't know which one to take. And I'm a Pisces, so I get caught up on the decisions part, which is where the procrastination kicks in, versus someone setting out that plan and be like, here you go. I had the bachelor's from computer science and then switched it to, logistics, and, I just never saw the need, because I didn't know where I was going to end up, and I didn't know what the end up requirements was, which I'm just finding out now.
Yeah. It's really just a really hard like decision for me because of the fact that the more and more and more and more I look at it over so many years of going to school and then not finishing and going back to school and not finishing, it's like when I try to get to the fundamental like core of it, I look at it and I'm like, if you're not a doctor or a lawyer, really you can learn anything. Like nowadays you can learn anything online for free. I think what really to your point, right, about the jobs and the careers that they're asking for a bachelor's degree, my point of view on it is like if my 25 years of military experience of working in IT doesn't translate to a job that's like associate level or bachelor level, maybe I'm not the right person for your job. Like, I think it's...
There are a lot of them like that even put degree requirements, and there is that equivalency, especially for IT. You guys definitely have your own way of doing stuff, but not so much in my field.
Yeah, I mean, even in logistics, though, right? If you look at supply side logistics or logistics chain management or whatever, like that field is constantly changing, right? Because the technology is getting better. You've got better ways to sort and organize the data. You've got better ways to inventory stock and move stock around and track it. And like it's constantly improving. It's because it involves a lot of IT solutions, right? So, and the same with the IT, like I could have it doesn't make sense for me to have a BS in computer science from 10 years ago and have that be the criteria that lets me get the job when all the stuff I learned 10 years ago is completely irrelevant now, right? Old programming languages and, basic visual development nonsense. It doesn't matter anymore, right? Unix, like nobody's using Unix anymore. So that's kind of where it's... And they do, but it's like the Unix that maybe I learned 10 years ago in school was like HP Unix, right? Which is completely irrelevant today. Oh, yeah, well, Linux, yeah. But either way, it's like the relevancy of the degree. And that's kind of another reason why I don't really 100% agree with college degrees is because it's a snapshot in time, right? It's not continual learning, continual education, continually being curious and open-minded about taking in information like you naturally are. It's about getting that certificate in that snapshot of time based on that specific information that was available at that point in time. A lot of people don't go beyond that, right? A lot of people get the degree and they get the job and they stop learning. And I just don't want to fall into that category. I think that's why.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that degree. It's why I like when I started doing those Coursera courses back in 2015, I was like, this brings me so much more value. That Coursera made me so smart, way beyond my pay grade.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, what people were like, what is this? What is this? And, I suggested it to Schoolhouse, and I was like, no. But now look at it. Coursera's like, do a Coursera course, and that certificate means something now on your LinkedIn profile. And that's, they have more relevant topics. Here's a specialization on contract management, instead of having to do science, math, this, and then it's like, just here's the meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
I've gotten so addicted to that learning style that, going to class and hearing all the ifs, ands, and buts, and realize by video, it's like a couple minute videos chunked down. You can get class done pretty quickly, without actually going to class. Do a Coursera one versus the online one. It's like a lot of readings. Like, here, read this book, then read this. It's like, when you're trying to read everything.
Yeah.
So I do like the delivery method of the mass online courses things.
Yeah, and I think it's going to gradually change. I mean, something has to give, right? I mean, we see it now with the Biden-Harris Act for, giving back school loans and stuff. And not to go off on a tangent, but why not? The school loan forgiveness and that should then, I mean, it might not, but that should then trigger some kind of insight or somebody looking into like, why are colleges so expensive? Why are we charging, hundreds of thousands of dollars to somebody who's going to get out and get a job that pays them $30,000, and it kind of locks them into that whole, that's the whole reason why the school loan thing has gotten completely out of hand, is because people were taking money out, and the people that were giving the money out were just giving it out freely because, you're going to college, so we'll give you the money, but how many of those people that took the college loans or even the grant money actually finished a degree. Like I took college loans and grant money. I didn't finish a degree. So I guess it goes with the assumption of like, you take the loans, you're going to get out and get a job with your degree, and then you're going to pay back the loans over 10 or 15 or 20 years or whatever. But not everybody takes the money and does that with it, right? So I think fundamentally, and again, to what we were talking about before, about the technology, like the shift that's going to happen in the next few years with technology, there's not going to be a lot of places for these people that have these like systems of good old boy kind of, bureaucratic nonsense is going to kind of dissipate. It's going to be very painful for them, because once you decentralize the data and make it transparent to everyone, the same with the knowledge management stuff. Like once you make the information transparent across the board and you flatten the organization, because that's what knowledge management is about. It's flattening the organization so that everybody has access to all the data and all the same information. You're on a level playing field. Once you do that, you can't hide behind we have to charge you $50,000 a year to go to our college. Like, okay, but on the ledger it says you're full of shit. So what are you talking about?
Yeah, and those, looking into my master's programs lately, I'm like, it's $100,000 for 2 years, And like, I'm thinking people have like $100,000 loans for the whole bachelor's and master's, but they're talking like, no, those masters are just $100,000.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Especially if you're going out of state, then it just doubles and triples beyond that, right?
Yeah, good thing we have the yellow ribbon.
Yeah.
It's kind of been helping out.
Yeah. Speaking of like some other benefits of the military, one of the big topics that I'm going to try to cover as much as possible, because it seems like it's also one of those black box kind of things where it's there, but you don't really know how it operates. And even though there's a ton of information out there, like people constantly have questions about it and don't know what to do with it. But space aid travel, like what's your thoughts on space aid travel? Have you ever traveled space aid?
Like 10 times.
Okay. Back and forth to
Germany.
Mm-hmm.
BWI to Germany. When I was an instructor, I was in Virginia. BWI wasn't too far away. And I get to go home and see my daughter once a month, once a year for a month. Yeah, so that was great. That was a great tool. I mean, it was closed for a while. Now it's just opened again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just opened it back in April.
It's definitely important I heard, at first when I saw that closing it, it's like they might take away this program from people. And I'm like, oh, no, you're not. This is one of the major selling points. And just because an Air Force person was, didn't feel like updating the time schedule doesn't mean everyone's going to lose their right to entitlement to do that.
When's the last time you flew space aid?
It's been a while. I mean, since my last unit, probably 2016, maybe.
So I
don't, because now I'm in New York. The flights are so cheap, I could just fly there. Mm-hmm. And it goes more direct. Space A, it's going to take 22 hours from start to finish to get where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
There's no point in going from New York all the way down south.
Yeah, it's true.
Actually, since I've been in New York, more people have come visit me versus me having to go back to Germany and visit them.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about now that I'm Cat 6, I'm about to find out. I'm about to see it take a space A hop here soon. But trying to figure out like what does it look like being Cat 6 versus Cat 3, and if I know right now you can sign up.
Cat 6?
Yeah, Cat 6 as a retiree. So right now you can sign up.
It's 4 now.
I'm pretty sure it's Cat 6. Sorry, Cat 5. Cat 6? I think it's Cat 6. I'll have to double check and fact check it. But either way, it's not Cat 3. But yeah, you can sign up like 60 days in advance. So if you plan on traveling within the next 60 days, you just sign up online, and then make the process a little bit easier now. So you can actually just fill out a form online and then just send it off. And then the only other thing you have to do is just like
check in for whatever flight, for whatever day, but you actually get like a lot more buffer than you do when you're going on leave, even though you're a lower category. Because on leave, you're like, at midnight with the leave form, you turn in your thing to space A, and then hopefully they can manifest you within, a few days or a week at the latest. But I know I've had times where I had to spend like a week or two traveling on space A to get back and forth to where I wanted to go. So document it and see what it looks like.
I've yet not to make it on a space day, but I can imagine going down there and not getting on a flight.
Yeah, I've missed plenty. I've missed a few flights.
Hopefully, after I get a job, I won't even have to use space day.
Yeah, that's the plan, right? But it's still nice though, and you can still get some decent destinations. Still, it depends on where you're flying out of. And the rotators are probably the best, I think, right? Because they do direct and they're usually commercial. Shit, man. I think I've asked all my questions. Do you have any questions of me? Anything you want to ask me?
So, I guess you're retired like a year before me.
Almost, yeah.
You've been telling me a lot about how you're feeling and whatnot. So, what do you miss most about being in the military?
Having full control of my environment as far as my work. What you had mentioned about having a purpose with a bigger organization and knowing that this is what I go to the office for every day, even though some days it was like a little stressful or you didn't want to be there. But either way, at the end of the day, you always had something to look forward to, being in the office, working on some important projects, hopefully saving people's lives and keeping people out of danger, because I think that's what our main purpose in the military was. Having a purpose that was way, way, way beyond myself, and being able to put effort and try to fulfill that purpose every single day, day in and day out, and really just going in 100%. I've seen you at many different levels of organizations and different units. I really like to go 100% with my work in the military, and whether that means doing it after hours, working late on weekends, like whatever, I would always put in the effort no matter what. Coming from the MRT background, like understanding how to employ some of those soft skills and teach people about them and try to help make people's lives better, because it's not an easy job. Like the military is not easy. It looks easy some days to us on the inside once we've been in for 10 or 15 years, but from the outside, it's a tough job, and it's very demanding, and it takes a lot of your time, a lot of your physical and mental abilities. So that's one thing that I definitely miss, is being able to employ that type of mentorship and teaching to people to help with the soft skills, the ones that when you get out, you don't realize you need them as much as you need them. And maybe you've experienced that in your job searching and job hunting. Like a lot of these companies, they want driven people, but they also want people with soft skills who understand emotional intelligence and who understand how to play nice in the office and, treat people with respect and dignity. And I think those things are really important. And so it's two things that I miss.
It does have a good structure to it. That's something that how you can work through the system, versus now everything is kind of like more of a matrix type structure. So it's like, go talk to everybody. Since you didn't actually do the corporate fellowship at Skillbridge because you weren't aware of it, how's your transition been going and trying to find a job post military?
It's been difficult. I did find out about the Skillbridge thing right before the 6-month mark. And so I was hustling, trying to get into it. But for one, like my command was kind of like holding me in a chokehold, because they wouldn't let me go to do anything. And when they finally said, yeah, we'll sign the memo or whatever, you can go do the thing, like the time had already passed. But that's something I was pushing on for like 2 years before I got out, like trying to do some kind of fellowship or some kind of internship with another organization. It was really difficult to get the command to release me. So I missed the boat on the Skillbridge thing. I think it would have helped me get a job. I think it definitely would have opened up a lot of opportunities and doors for me. I don't think it would have allowed me to be as free-spirited as I want to be in my
job search, which is work remotely, work on my own or with a small team, work on emerging projects that are not part of some big conglomerate corporation like an Amazon or a Google. I'm very scrappy, and I like working with scrappy people because they know how to put things together with duct tape and coat hangers and make shit happen. And so that's the environment that I thrive in. It's the environment I thrived in the military, was just always trying to duct tape some shit together to make it work. And at the end, it works, and you prove everybody wrong that said you weren't going to be able to pull it off. And you did it with as few resources as humanly possible. It's a little bit depressing to think about, like, applying for 100 jobs or 200 jobs and getting like a dozen interviews and not getting picked up with all the experience, with the rank, with everything else. It's a little disappointing. And it's definitely in the back of my mind. But then it also allows me to remind myself, like, hey, you really don't want to work for a company per se. Like, you really want to kind of do your own thing. And the only way to do that is like really just to eat shit for, quite a while to make it happen. So that's the mode I'm in right now, is just eat shit, grind, put in the reps, see where it leads me.
I will say that doing the fellowship, that a lot of the big corporations now have elements that do that grinding type of work nowadays. They're branching out to different approaches, to get little areas that work on niche projects over here on the side. So, like in Amazon, when you look at all the things that different sections, it's almost like the military. It's like, they have a unit that does this, they have a unit that does that and that. It's a lot of mobility. It's not just warehousing over there. It has the whole kit and caboodle. And, for me, a job like that is like having being empowered by the military and having their back, but you also have the funds and resources to do it too. And you got very smart people around you as well. I do feel more confident joining a corporation now than I would have before, because they're gotten down to the startup type. They have like startups within their corporations to the point now. It's like everyone's going back to these fundamental. This is day one. This is always day one. We are always learning like on day one type. I think us in the military, since we just started this program and them getting on, they're getting smarter, they're reaching out more. I see them actually developing into an organization that, takes care of their employees better and training that's involved. And I'm almost excited to be in the corporate world just so I can navigate over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, not getting rejected is, it's hard. It hurts my feelings, that last one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of the process, though. It's the same, like, do you ever have like a paper route when you were growing up?
Yeah.
Or sell things door to door, like the candy bars from
No,
high
I
school
had paper
thing?
route.
So, doing that door to door grind, and when you're doing that, like, you're going to get 80, 90% no's, and you have to knock on somebody's door and try to sell something to them. And I kind of treat that the same way I treat the job search thing. It's like, I should expect to see 90% failure rate with my applications and my interviews.
Yeah, I mean, like when I see people, they're like, because that drive that you have, that persistent questioning, that the way you move and go about things doesn't come across well when they're asking you like these what if questions in a resume.
Yeah.
And it's like a normal, formal type structure. It's like being in person and being on the job, they'd be like, it's not a doubt in my mind that you should be in this role. But then going from what you're writing on paper into these questions and how you formulate it, how you respond to it, it's just you don't really get to know the person very well. But that's the world that communicated in, which is, it's like not being yourself. Even though a lot of the companies nowadays, they want you to be yourself. You could bring your whole self. That's how we are, easygoing, bring your whole self. You could be who you want to be. But then you got this interview process, and it's like, can I really be who I want to be? Not at this moment, at least, So,
yeah, I think
if that makes sense.
I think, no, it does. I actually do kind of the opposite with my interviews. I actually am really truly like deeply myself within the interviews. I mean, of course I'm professional about it, but at the same time, I just kind of like at this point in my life, it's like, who do I have to impress? Like, what am I really doing for a job interview? Like, they see all my stuff, and if I answer the question, especially with technical stuff, I don't know, maybe it's different in different job fields, but again, those soft skills, like, they play really heavily into it. The emotional intelligence and I guess all like the psychology stuff that I've studied over the years, this really helps out with that. But at the same time, like it's not, I definitely am very direct with my answers, and I don't try to like sugarcoat things whenever I'm talking to a company on the interview. I just go straight forward and just kind of, you know, work my way through it. And hopefully that gives them the best judgment of who I am as a person, and if I'm a right fit for their kind of structure and their organization. And it also gives me, because that's one thing that I try to do as well, is it's not just them asking me questions and interviewing me. It's like I'm interviewing them to see if they're the right fit for me as well. Because I think that's very important. And I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration. I think everybody thinks the interview process is a one-way process, and I see it as a two-way process. And I'm very adamant about it too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a personality match, you know, because it's the hiring managers that you're going to work with, and, you know, do they feel comfortable working with you every day?
Yeah.
So sometimes the interview is just a formality.
Sometimes.
A lot of them just want to get it on. You know, you have that pre-interviews now where they just do information, like, all right. But they have to, you know, tag because there's like so many interviews you do. And that's when they ask you all those questions. I forgot what I was going to say, actually. But, yeah, I forgot where I was going with that.
No worries.
You know, because I've already had the job, and like I already had the job. And they're like, let's get an interview on the books. And then, you know, we did it. And then I actually almost made it worse sometimes, you know, because you're too rigid or too structured, you know. They want to know, it's a personality match. Like, do you match? Can I work out with you? So my thing is what I've learned is you got to be a little bit lighthearted and humorous, you know, so no one doesn't want that rigid person. They want to have fun at work too. I guess they want to, so it has to be a little bit lightheartedness, you know. So on my interview process, which I recently thought was a lot easier, is, you know, because everything in school you do has a rubric, right?
Yeah.
You know, because we interviewed a few people in my unit for some jobs, and, you know, you hear the questions, and then you would have that grading score. You know, in the Army one, they would go on maturity, on how mature the person was when they answered the question and whatnot. But I've seen other few grading sheets that I've discovered. And I'm like, I don't know why don't, you know, in school they give you a rubric so you can perform the best. All right, here's how you top block, exceed by doing this and this and this and this. And for some reason, you know, interviewers want to have a good employee, so why wouldn't they give them the rubric? Here you're giving me like the last one, which was pretty good. They gave me competencies. Okay, well, those were specific competencies, which were good. But the unit before that, you know, they give you answer this question in this kind of fashion. Okay, I could do that. But you're not telling me what you're grading me on, you know? And then one time I saw what the grading thing was. And I was like, oh, you're looking for me to see how I motivated people during that scenario. Well, I didn't maybe include that in my scenario because you're asking me to tell a story of my perspective.
Right.
But I didn't realize that in that story, you're grading me on how I motivated people in that time. I'm thinking you're asking me. So it's like you don't understand the grading process in an interview because they don't like to share their rubric.
Yeah.
And I even asked for it a few times, and it's like crickets. This would help you to get me to perform better and easy for you to evaluate when I don't even know what you're looking for. You're asking me to like guess at what you want. Here are your competencies. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the best.
So what do you grade? Sure, this and then.
Yeah, I think one of the best processes that actually falls in line with what you're saying of actually giving somebody the rubric is a company called Automattic. Basically, the core company for WordPress. Matt Mullenweg is the the CEO, like the guy behind it, and their hiring process, or at least their starting like application interview process. It's spelled out like step by step by step, like here's what you should do, and here's what we need you to do, and here's the steps that you need to follow to get through the interview process, and here's actually what the interview process looks like, and this is what we're going to grade you on. And then once you make it through that process, then we go into a little bit deeper technically about some challenges, and then after that we decide who we're going to pick out of the pool of people that we're interviewing. Theirs is spelled out. They've got like little videos and little checklists. It's actually kind of not the norm, but it falls in line with exactly what you just said.
And it makes life so much simpler. I'm trying to think of something for 24 years to find this perfect story to hopefully fit what you are trying to grade me on. And it's just like, it's so full spectrum that, you're delayed just by trying to recall something versus just asking me a specific question. And then here's what you're going to be graded on. You get what you're looking for, and I can answer more easily because I know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I had one interview, like I mentioned before. They're talking about creating wikis and doing like communications and whatnot. But it turned out to be at the end when I asked them what the job does, it was like, oh, you're creating like an onboarding management training base for different offices to know how to tell employees what they need to do.
Yeah.
But no, that wasn't to even what I was trying to answer. I wasn't even trying to answer that question because I didn't know that was the requirement. So I don't know why you wouldn't just give a rubric just to tell them exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the company, I guess, and how they view the process. But yeah, it would probably help to have a rubric. Probably be nice. But in some cases, I can see why they do it. Why they want to be a little bit more secretive because they're trying to weed out some certain behavior type things. So, is there any parting words of wisdom that you might want to share? Anything that we haven't covered that maybe has come to mind over the course of the interview or the course of the last 8 days of being retired?
I think about this all the time. A whole bunch of things, but right now, parting words of wisdom, that the project that there was such good certifications out there that weren't really popular in the Army that I think, it should have really been published a whole lot sooner so that people could speak this language during their work in the military and they're understanding it. Now hindsight trying to learn this project management stuff. And I didn't realize how important that class was and how everything's a project. But, some of the verbiages I'd see in a project, I just thought, that's the verbiage of the project. But I didn't realize those are actual official project managing terms, that I thought those project managing, those inventory things from my logistics point of view. Not one person has mentioned to me, here's a good way to bridge military supply per se to civilian supply. And I'm just now realizing it. And, yeah.
So translating like the corporate or the industry speak and matching it up with the military speak and military ways we do things.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we did when we got the new, GCS Army, SAP program. The whole selling point was to be able to speak the terms of business. Mm-hmm. It was a really good idea, and it was good. Yeah. But we should go one step further and do that with all the other certifications, because there's a lot of good information out there. And all it was getting ready for, like, say, a certification, which is all the core knowledge that you need anyway. Yeah. Hindsight. Now, I've been trying to push that on the forums that I'm on for logistics people, so they're not going through what I'm doing through this. But, my words of wisdom would be to take the project managing course and all those certificates that are offered to you before you get out. Not just the last year, because you only take 2 per year.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one thing that I found really interesting about the warrant officer program when I went through it was, and maybe it was just specific to my field because we were kind of like a certification kind of field where we had to do.
What's
What's that?
Those Sam's courses that you took.
Sans courses and Microsoft courses and like Cisco courses and stuff like that. Like in the process of all those courses, we did actually do like Project Plus, which is not PMP, it's not project management, but it's like a stair step to PMP, which was totally unexpected. It was one of our mandatory courses that we had to take. And they did put like a little emphasis on things like that. I think I don't know if they did it in the advanced non-commissioned officer course or whatever they call it nowadays. I don't know if they do that at the E7, E8, E9 level. I imagine they probably don't. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that's at a bare minimum, like maybe an Agile Scrum course, which teaches you about how to manage teams and how to do workload structure and how to, break things down into smaller pieces so that you're not working on this big overwhelming thing. You're just working on little chunks day by day and keeping a daily tab on it. That's what I really spent the last year and a half, 2 years of my Army time trying to just drill that into the command and try to make it happen with knowledge management. And they didn't really embrace it. And I think it's like the soft skills. It's like something that you don't realize you need until you're actually out of the military a lot of times. But yeah, Agile, project management, I think those two basically are like essential that everybody who's a leader in the military should be afforded those courses.
Those are two I got now too, yeah.
Yeah, I think they should be standardized from the E5 level on up. Like seriously, it would make the force a lot stronger and a lot more effective, I think.
Yeah, knowledge management. Half the people don't even know what to share for knowledge management, Well, here's the stuff to share. Work your way out from there.
Yeah, that was probably one of the better courses I took too, was the KM course. It really, really helped expand my mind as far as, how to work with the organization, how to convey and communicate things, how to share information and make it relevant and really get to the core of proper communication skills and proper sharing of data and information, which is really it's all we operate on anymore is email and shared folders and Teams and Microsoft products. And
I'm surprised we're not creating reels right now to communicate. When you do a report, do a little Instagram type reel,
like a TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok for the military.
I mean, it's the mission.
Yeah.
It would make sense because everyone wants the info really quick and, in pieces. So if you use a quick highlight reel, it talks about everything, little bam, 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 bam.
Right.
I just haven't effectively figured out how to use it, teach people how to make little reels, give you a little, rundown summary of what you need to do in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up, over the course of these interviews as I do them, I think I'm going to end up cutting out little snippets and creating little, 5, 10, 20 second, 30 second little pieces that I can stick out there that really kind of hit the point. Because I know this will probably turn into an hour long, 45 minutes, hour and a half thing, because I'm really a fan of the long form and not most people aren't. But, yeah, those little bite-sized pieces, because I get that from you. I remember you would always tell me, okay, so what's the Cliff Notes for? You sent me this document, what's the Cliff Notes? Is there anywhere, if somebody happens to watch this video and wants to reach out to you and give you a job or get in contact with you about doing some work or project management, or where can they find you? Where's the best place to look for you?
Man, I'm on LinkedIn, so it'd be Garry Frobart, Garry, Frobart, F as in Frank, ROBART, Frobart on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Nothing fancy.
Cool.
That's the best way.
Are you posting a lot of content on LinkedIn lately?
I like and share certain things I want other people who could think would be interesting. I don't just like and share everything. Yeah. I don't really share anything, but kind of selective. No, it's a great tool, a lot of info. I can get lost in it forever. I should have got started on a little bit earlier, but I don't know, like a lot of things recently, when I think of content nowadays, it's like all of a sudden it pops up. Like right now, there's such a, with the LinkedIn trainings and all that stuff, there's so much good content out there. I don't necessarily think you need to create your own content, but rather consolidate the resources that are already out there. Mm-hmm. For me, at least, half the trick is finding crap stuff.
You can say shit. It's fun. Where do you find yourself spending the most time to look for resources? Like, is it reading books? Is it on the internet? Is there any, like, a handful or a couple resources that come to mind that are like your most important, like the best resources that you've been using?
Well, when I look at my resources, I do it a few different ways. First, I look at my database of the Army training that I've gotten, because, a lot of the Army training is already training off these great resources already. You're just not realizing it. So I try to see how the Army can speak on the topic, because that's what I'm familiar with, and I most likely have already done that. So it's like a refresher for the Army side. And then, I do like going on the Coursera or something and then downloading specialization in that area as well, because that gives me the official college education on that part. And then when I go and research, I try to find those authoritative sources for like contracting or like project management and try to pull it from their textbooks, so that way I have the three pretty official sources to pull all the information. And in there, that's the gist of it right there. LinkedIn has, provided some other great training, which have a whole lot of things I want to do. I haven't really taken the time to do it all yet. But I've been doing Skillbridge, Coursera for since 2015. I didn't really do the certifications because I was just doing it in the commute for fun. Hindsight, if I would have done it now for the specials, for all the certificates, I would have been like one of the highest probably. Yeah. With the amount of Coursera courses that I completed in so many different areas. And I like the Coursera because it gets you to learn things that you wouldn't normally use. Mm-hmm. Web browser has probably like 120 things open right now. So I find it from everything, which way, and like I'll go one thing, and I won't close it until I've actually read the site and tagged it and learned it. That's why a lot of it's open, because I keep leading into another thing, another browser, and just find that authoritative source that provides the info. And then I like to print screen and highlight, because I could read the same thing twice, not realize that I read it twice. So I like to leave my little marks, my highlighters, because it's 100 pages. Maybe I've highlighted 10 pages, but at least I know those are the core 10 principles I want to learn on. Mm-hmm. And just remember those at least, and then maybe expand as I go, kind of as a tracker that I read it, like a little red mark.
You keep like a folder of those things? How do you organize this?
Oh, yeah. I got so much data. Hell, for this last interview, I had like 4 documents, 26 pages of notes that I've taken, between stories, notes, the, breakdown of from the PMP. Because now, when I try to do my interviews, I'd always go to the project management book and I pull down the steps and tools, and because a lot of it, they want you to talk through the process and they want steps. So I pull out the steps and just to kind of like embed it in my brain a little better and how to strategically answer certain questions, which was harder for me to do. So like, you need to be more strategic with your answers. I'm like, okay, but I couldn't really think of it. So when I go to these textbooks, I pull out these steps and try to follow the format. The problem is when you go on live, I can't remember it all. Yeah. And there's so many things I want to like try to say at once that none of it comes out right, because I'm like having like 5 conflicting different ways I want to approach the question. Sometimes I get that deer in the headlight look, because I'm like trying to recall what page I wrote that in. And the last interview I realized I was able to recall a lot of it the last time. So I felt, even though I didn't get past the second round, I felt like my ability to recall and talk about a topic has much improved. And doing it that way
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting. Do you take like the PMP Brown book? Is that the one you're referring to?
the PMBOK,
The yeah.
PMBOK, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, whatever the student guide was, because I took it from a course, a boot camp kind of class.
Yeah. Yeah, we call it
So
the
it's a
Brown book.
digital
It's got the brown cover on it, or it used to at least.
they're used to.
Yeah. That's an
Yeah,
interesting
so
approach.
really it's just trying to incorporate that verbiage into your speak, you know. Half it's language bridging, you know, speak the language,
Yeah.
you know, use those terms. So to try to like deep dive into the knowledge that terms and, you know, utilize it later on in everything I do.
That's a very interesting approach. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah, it's probably something I get from, you know, being an instructor now, is because I've always had, you know, a lesson plan to go off of that was already pre-done, but it gave you the regulations, the references, and where to look and what to incorporate. So when I'm actually preparing for a freaking interview, it's like I'm writing my own lesson plan, you know, and that's the structure. So that's why it gets me, I feel exhausted going to an interview, because I put so much work in it myself to get to that point. I just don't, you know, come off the cuff and like, let's talk. I like to prepare something because I do better off script than trying to, you know, go off script. I go off script all the time, but, you know, I'm still working on that lesson plan for the interview, you know, just helps me embed it more.
Yeah.
It's my brain.
Yeah, it solidifies the information that you're taking in.
Yeah, but now I got so technical in terminology. It's like, now I got to trim it down. You know, I'm getting there.
Yeah, I think you'll get it, man. I think it sounds like you have a really good process. I've never even really thought about it that way, because I don't consider myself an instructor, but that's a really interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, because now being an instructor, now it's like it's changed my learning habits, because now it's not just me reading it and thinking about it. I got to be able to explain it to someone else in a way. And so I need to remember all the text, what they want me to say, how to like translate it into easier action steps if it doesn't provide it. Then I got to navigate them through it. And then I got to provide other resources and other stuff to like add to it. You know, so now when I read stuff, I can't just, let me read it. I got to like sit there and absorb it more. I got to read it like 10 times so I can understand the concept, so I can speak it without looking at a document later on.
Yeah.
So now I'm like slower a little bit when I read stuff, because I'm trying to absorb it more and be more accurate. It works out, but it takes longer. So that's where a lot of stuff piles on. So I don't do it now, and I don't read it now, and I don't do it now, it's going to get lost in the shuffle. That's why I don't close any of my browsers until I've tagged it and, you know, cataloged it or whatever I have to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you'll find, it's just my perspective, but I think you'll find the longer you're on retirement, you start to slow down the processes that used to be like rush, 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 rush. And now you're like, what if I just take the long path and enjoy the walk, rather than trying to rush across the field to get to point B from point A? Now I can actually take, the scenic route and absorb the stuff that's around me and take in the environment and still get to the same destination probably in the same amount of time, because really, like, the difference between rushing and not rushing is like maybe a minute or two off of your time. You don't usually get there any faster. Yeah, you definitely slow things down, and I think in slowing things down, you're able to better perfect your process. Like, you have your process that you've used before, and it sounds like your process is really in depth and it goes into a lot of details. And now you can actually slow down that process and really fine tune it so that the end result is 5x or 10x better than it ever was before. Because you've already got the muscle memory of going through that process, but you were doing it in a fashion where you had to constantly do it like really rushed and hurried, and you didn't have a lot of time to prepare sometimes. And now you have time to space that out. It's a plus and a minus, because if you give yourself a bigger space to operate in, then you give yourself more room to be lazy and procrastinate. But at the same time, you can definitely drill a lot deeper and get really laser focused on stuff.
definitely, definitely. Definitely in the Army is like, you got to do it now because the next thing's going to come in. So there was an urgency that you had to learn stuff in. Like when I first started instructing, they gave me 40 lesson plan. Here's your course, 40 lessons plan. Go learn 1,000 pages. I'm like, and I need to go on like next week. And I'm like, where do you start? You can't be a master in every lesson because you got to teach them all. So you got to like learn that, a little bit of every lesson plan at one point. And then the next thing I'd forget again, you always have to learn a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. And then at one point I just got tired of always having to go back and relearn stuff, because I'd had to go through quickly. I just sat down. I'm like, I'm just focusing on this one lesson plan. I'm going to go from front to back and look at references and whatnot. So I mastered it. And then once I had started to do that, and then I became like an expert on the lesson plan, and then I can move to the next one. That it took me a little bit longer that way, but I never had to go back and really brushing up on my lesson plan anymore because I'd already did the work, all the documents, all the tabs, that I saved myself a whole lot of studying time because I took long in the first place.
Yeah. Cool, man. That was the interview. That's pretty much it. I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you sitting down with me and doing this. And I know it's not something very comfortable, but hopefully it's been insightful and helpful. It's definitely been insightful and helpful for me. I've learned some things that I didn't know, and I've known you for many, many, many months, many years. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we can talk again soon in another interview about space age travel or something.
Sounds good. Sounds good.